Have you ever noticed something strange about your attention? You can scroll your phone for an hour without feeling tired. Video after video, post after post. Your brain moves effortlessly from one stimulus to the next. But the moment you sit down to do something important, study, work, write, build something meaningful, suddenly your mind feels heavy. 5 minutes pass and your brain starts looking for an escape. You check your phone, you open another tab, you promise yourself you'll focus later. And after a while, a frustrating thought appears. Why can I focus on useless things for hours, but not on the things that actually matter? Most people interpret this as a discipline problem. They think they lack motivation. But the real issue is something much deeper. Your brain hasn't become lazy. Your brain has become overstimulated. To understand why this happens, we need to talk about one of the most misunderstood chemicals in the human brain: dopamine. Dopamine is often described as the pleasure chemical, but that description is misleading. Dopamine is not really about pleasure. Dopamine is about anticipation. It's the signal your brain uses to say, this might be rewarding, pay attention. Thousands of years ago, this system worked beautifully. Dopamine would spike when humans discovered something important: a new food source, a successful hunt, learning a skill that improved survival. In other words, dopamine helped humans pursue effortful rewards. The harder the task, the more meaningful the reward. But the modern world has quietly changed the rules of this system. Today, your brain can trigger massive dopamine spikes without effort at all. Endless scrolling, highly processed food, short-form videos, gaming systems designed to keep you hooked, even constant notifications from your phone. Each of these delivers tiny bursts of stimulation over and over again. Your brain begins to experience hundreds of small rewards every day. And while each one seems harmless on its own, something subtle starts happening inside your nervous system. Your baseline dopamine level rises. Imagine dopamine like the volume knob on a speaker. When stimulation is rare, the volume is low. Small achievements feel exciting. Reading a book feels engaging. Working toward a goal feels meaningful. But when the brain receives constant stimulation, the volume slowly turns up. And once the volume is high enough, ordinary activities stop registering. Suddenly, things that once felt interesting now feel dull. Working on a project feels slow. Reading feels difficult. Deep focus feels almost painful. Not because those activities changed, but because your brain has been recalibrated to expect faster and stronger stimulation. It's similar to what happens when someone walks into a brightly lit room. At first, the light feels intense, but after a few minutes, the eyes adapt. And when they walk back into normal lighting, everything seems dim. Your brain does something similar with dopamine. When stimulation becomes constant, your mind adapts, and the rest of life begins to feel strangely quiet. This is why people today often feel trapped in a strange cycle. They consume more stimulation because they feel bored, but the more stimulation they consume, the more boring everything else becomes. It's not a lack of discipline. It's a dopamine imbalance. Now, this is where the idea of a dopamine detox appears. You've probably heard the term before. Maybe you've seen videos suggesting you should avoid technology, avoid entertainment, avoid stimulation entirely for a day or a week or even longer. The idea sounds simple. Remove dopamine sources, reset the brain, become focused again. But here's the problem. Most dopamine detox strategies fail, not because the concept is wrong, but because they misunderstand how the brain actually works. Dopamine is not something you can simply eliminate. Your brain produces dopamine when you eat, when you move, when you think about the future, even when you anticipate something positive. Trying to remove dopamine completely would be like trying to remove gravity from your life. It's impossible. And when people attempt extreme detox methods, something predictable happens. They hold on for a day, maybe two, but eventually the brain rebels. The cravings return. The phone comes back. The old habits slowly rebuild themselves. Not because the person is weak, but because the system they tried to follow was unsustainable. So if extreme detoxes don't work, what actually does? The real solution isn't removing dopamine. The real solution is retraining how your brain earns it. Because the healthiest dopamine system is not one with less stimulation. It's one where rewards follow effort instead of replacing it. In the next part of this video, we're going to break down the dopamine detox method that actually works, not as a punishment, not as a temporary challenge, but as a system that gradually retrains your brain to find meaning in effort again. A method built on 3 principles: reducing artificial stimulation, relearning boredom, and rebuilding the connection between effort and reward. Because once that connection returns, something powerful happens. Focus stops feeling like a battle, discipline stops feeling forced, and the things that once felt impossible start becoming natural again. So if the goal isn't to eliminate dopamine, what exactly does a real dopamine reset look like? The answer is surprisingly simple. You don't remove dopamine. You retrain the order in which your brain receives it. Right now, in most modern lifestyles, the order looks like this: reward first, effort later. You wake up and check your phone. Your brain receives stimulation before you've done anything meaningful. You scroll during breaks. You watch videos while eating. You bounce between tabs while working. Without realizing it, your brain has learned a powerful rule. Rewards are always available, even without effort. And when the brain learns that rule, motivation slowly disappears. Why work for something difficult when easier stimulation is always waiting? The dopamine detox that actually works flips this order. Effort first, reward later. But to make this change sustainable, you need a simple framework. Think of it as 3 phases that slowly retrain your brain. Phase 1, remove the loudest signals. Your brain doesn't need perfect discipline, it just needs less noise. Right now, your attention is surrounded by constant signals competing for it. Notifications, social feeds, infinite video loops. Each one is designed to trigger your dopamine system repeatedly, and when these signals are always present, your brain never gets the chance to reset. So the first phase is not about removing everything, it's about removing the loudest sources of stimulation, the ones that hijack your attention the fastest. For most people, this means one thing above all: the phone. Not because phones are evil, but because they deliver stimulation faster than anything else in your environment. So start with a simple rule. Create small phone-free zones in your day. The first hour after waking up, the last hour before sleeping, and during one block of focused work. At first this will feel uncomfortable. Your hand may even reach for the phone automatically. That's not weakness, that's conditioning. Your brain has learned to expect stimulation in every quiet moment. But when those signals disappear, something interesting begins to happen. Your mind slows down, your thoughts become clearer, and the constant urge for stimulation begins to soften. This is the first stage of the reset. Not dramatic, not extreme, just reducing the noise. Phase 2, relearn boredom. Once stimulation decreases, another experience begins to appear: boredom. And for many people, boredom feels almost unbearable. The moment the mind becomes quiet, something inside says, do something, check something, watch something. But boredom is not a problem. Boredom is actually a signal. It's the moment when your brain begins searching for something meaningful to engage with. Throughout history, boredom was often the starting point for creativity. It pushed humans to explore, to build, to invent. But today, boredom rarely lasts more than a few seconds. The moment it appears, we eliminate it with stimulation. And when boredom disappears, something else disappears with it: deep focus. So the second phase of the detox is simple. Allow boredom to exist again. Take short walks without headphones. Sit quietly for a few minutes instead of checking your phone. Let your mind wander without immediately filling the silence. At first, your brain will resist. It will crave stimulation. But if you allow that feeling to pass, something subtle begins to return. Your attention span expands. Your thoughts become more structured. And activities that once felt boring start to feel engaging again, because the brain is finally resetting its stimulation baseline. Phase 3, reconnect effort and reward. Now comes the most important step: rebuilding the connection between effort and dopamine. Remember, dopamine is not the enemy. Your brain needs dopamine to stay motivated. The goal is not to reduce it. The goal is to make sure dopamine appears after effort, not before it. Think of it like training a system. When you complete a meaningful task, studying, exercising, creating something, your brain should experience a reward afterward. Maybe that reward is relaxation. Maybe it's entertainment. Maybe it's simply the satisfaction of progress. But the order matters. Effort first, reward second. Over time, the brain begins to notice the pattern. Work leads to reward. Progress leads to satisfaction. And slowly, motivation begins to rebuild. Because dopamine is no longer being spent on meaningless stimulation. It's being earned through progress. This is why people who follow this system often notice something surprising. After a few weeks, they don't crave constant stimulation as much. Focus becomes easier. Distractions feel less powerful, and the things that once felt exhausting begin to feel natural. Not because the brain lost its need for dopamine, but because it learned where to find it again. There's an important truth about the modern world. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources that exists. Entire industries are built around capturing it, designing platforms that keep you scrolling, watching, consuming. But the moment you begin retraining your dopamine system, you regain something incredibly powerful: control over your attention. And attention is the foundation of everything meaningful. Every skill you develop, every project you build, every idea you create, all of it begins with your ability to focus your mind on something long enough to make progress. The dopamine detox that actually works isn't about becoming extreme. It's not about eliminating technology or pleasure from your life. It's about restoring the natural order of effort and reward, reducing noise, relearning boredom, and teaching your brain that the most satisfying dopamine is the kind you earn. Because once that shift happens, discipline stops feeling like punishment, focus stops feeling impossible, and the things that once seemed difficult start becoming part of who you are. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like the video and subscribe to The Subtle Mind for more powerful self-improvement systems.